earlier we talked about the defense attorney in the trial over the killing by police of Ahmaud Arbery.
Okay.
Now we are going to talk about the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
Oh boy.
Now I want to, listen, with this trial has become so toxic where if you have anything but a completely black and white view on, if you have a black and white view on the matter, half of the audience flips out on you. If you have a gray area view of different aspects of the trial, then everybody ends up upset for the most part. I've already said,
Okay.
I believe that the entire Kyle Rittenhouse situation is a result of educational, parenting, and cultural failure in the United States. Some of the most disgusting aspects of gun culture, militia culture, vigilantism, et cetera, in the United States. And at the same time, I believe that the facts...
This is something that I've said a million times. I'm going to say this every single time I hear this. I agree with what Pakman is saying, okay? But if you're going to say this, you also have to be critical of the rioting side because that's what's bringing these people out, okay? That's why these people are coming out. It's because they've seen the riots, they've seen their communities get destroyed, and they know that the cops aren't going to do anything. You have to be willing to address both sides of this.
In the case, support a self-defense acquittal, at least at the same time. I believe that the facts in the case support a self-defense acquittal, at least on 2 of the 3 main counts in the case, given the narrow nature with which those statutes are written. I've already said it. Okay, so please don't come back to me on that stuff. Now, I already went over last week when the judge, Bruce Schroeder, flipped out on the prosecutor, Binger, in the case, saying you were getting dangerously close to violating the Fifth Amendment when you started asking Kyle Rittenhouse during testimony about his the timing of when he is first giving his full version of events. You're sort of going after his right to silence and implying guilt there. And the judge kind of flipped out on the prosecutor, and people have their view about that. Now, I've gotten a bunch of emails from people saying, David, the judge is fine. There's no issue with the judge at all. First and foremost, I would urge folks, if you've not been following the case over the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, compare the role of the judge in the Rittenhouse case to the role of the judge in that other case. Judges, in a way, are like referees in sports. And if you follow sports, if you're talking about the referee, it's a problem, okay? If the story in a baseball game becomes the umpire and their ball and strike calls, it's probably because the umpire is at least theoretically doing something wrong because they're...
This is the worst analogy ever. The reason why this analogy absolutely doesn't fit is because usually when we're talking sports, usually like generally, a foul or like a misplay or something is going to be pretty clear. Like if somebody, fouled or if somebody is, holding in football or whatever, usually it's pretty clear that like, oh, okay, this is a foul, right? If you want to try to say like, oh, well, there's actually a couple times. Yeah, there are a few times, but the vast majority of the time, it's pretty clear. The vast majority of the time, foul calls are not controversial. Ref calls are not controversial. Umpire calls are not, the vast majority of the time, that's true. There might be 1 or 2 that are fucked, obviously, especially in fucking baseball. So the comparison doesn't work because when it comes to stuff that like a judge is ruling on, there's probably going to be, these things get way more contentious because of the complicatedness of the calls that the judge might have to make, right? Like, you can't really, it's not a matter of like, let's just check the instant replay cam. It's more a matter of like, what is our interpretation of these rules and how do we interpret these events that are being brought forth? It's way, way, way more complicated than that.
Making themselves, their presence known. In a basketball game, if the biggest topic of discussion is the foul calls by referees, the referees they're doing too much and they're playing too big a role, it's probably not good. And much the same way, in the Rittenhouse case, the judge has put himself front and center to even...
Yeah, okay, we'll see. We got 6 more minutes. But if you want to do that, if you want to say the judge, you need to show us, and hopefully he'll do that in the next few minutes, where is the judge inserting himself where he doesn't need to be doing it? Let's see if we get to that part.
Give you an example. The judge is so wacky and cartoonish that people send.
Destiny, I literally don't follow sports at all, and I still hear people crying about referee calls nonstop. Like, weren't people begging for replay shit? Okay, all you had to do is say, I don't follow sports at all. That's all you needed to say. Okay, thank you, Mirka. When refs fuck up, of course you hear about it. The vast majority of ref calls, the vast majority of sports are okay. Just think about it logically. What sport would work if refs were constantly fucking up? Or, like, the vast majority of calls are okay. Life.
Me for my soundboard for when we broadcast the trial, clips of the judge. First of all, there's the judge being obsessed with food, and so, for example.
By the way, how are the calzones? The food is here?
Yeah.
Let's take a break. Lunch is here. Pizza is here. But we have Subway tomorrow.
Okay. The judge.
So the one problem that I have with Pakman is that, like, I understand that he does, like, the dry humor thing or whatever, and he does it very well, and I appreciate that. I think it's funny. But it's really hard when he does that, but then he combines it with serious commentary, because I don't know how fans are taking that. Because I don't think people are taking it as a meme joke. I think people are like, wow, this guy's got problems. Like, LOL, he's obsessed with food and shit. Like, what? Like, what?
At one point asking the jury not to go to the bathroom in the courtroom. Like, literally, do not use the courtroom as your bathroom.
Whatever you do, make sure you go to the bathroom somewhere other than the courtroom.
Right? And then also, the judge seemingly...
What is there a reason for that? I don't know the context behind that quote, but I feel like there's probably a reason he said that, no? Is there, like, would you be wandering through people discussing the case or something? Or what was it? Or was it just a joke? Or, like, it literally might have just been a boomer joke. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever, okay.
Completely technologically inept. And the defense being able to use in their favor. That
technological ineptitude, ironically enough, and I said it the day that it happened, and I'll continue to say it, is actually the ineptitude of the vast majority of people on the internet. Pakman doesn't have that much of an excuse here, too, because you do internet shit. I would hope you know something about video editing, compressing, whatever, but he clearly doesn't. The judge's take there was completely fucking fair. Totally.
If you insert more data into an area of space while you're wagging your head no, tell me where I'm wrong.
There's no proof in this record that we're doing that, Your Honor.
I didn't say there was proof of it. I said you have the burden of proof. You're the proponent of the exhibit, and you need to tell me that it's reliable.
The exhibit's already in evidence, Your Honor.
That I know.
The enhanced exhibit is not in evidence.
This is not enhancing.
Well, then why show it?
I
mean, the reason you want to show it is so because it enhances the image, right? No, one at a time.
I'll say what Mr. Krause was just saying. The defense has taken videos and photos and cropped them, zoomed in on them, on many.
Okay. So apparently the judge thinks that zooming into a video is adding pixels and therefore altering the content. Okay? Now, how old is this judge? Okay? How old is this judge? The judge is 75 years old, okay? This judge is 75 years old, okay? And his understanding of this technology is actually surprisingly better than almost every single one of you motherfuckers out there. I actually cannot believe it. I would never expect somebody over 50 to have an understanding of what it means to digitally zoom on something and the idea that an algorithm can parse that data and then fill in the blanks. I absolutely cannot believe that you would think that this is a crazy thing to say, that like, oh my God, that's bullshit. How could he say that? Okay. There are two ways that you can upscale an image. Okay. There are two ways. And if the subject of the case is literally writing on this enhancement, okay, it is incredibly fucking important to understand how was the image enhanced. There are two ways, all right, that you can enhance an image. So number one is we can actually make every single pixel bigger. Well, maybe I should say there are three ways. There are a lot of theoretical ways you can enhance an image. We'll say in one way, we can actually make the pixels bigger, right? So what will happen is the picture will look more blocky, right? But we'll get a zoom. That zoom might not give us very much information. Now, one thing that you can do is, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was standard practice, is when phones or other things are zooming in on an image, what they actually are doing is they're upscaling it. They're actually increasing the resolution. But how can they do that? Because the data is not there. So they have to do some form of interpolation. They have to start adding data to the actual picture itself in order to make it look like it's not a blocky piece of shit. Now, if something is happening that is so finite on the screen that you need to zoom in digitally to see it, then how those algorithms are adding or guessing data where they're inserting pixels there, that could actually be paramount to determining what's happening in the footage. So for people that are saying like, oh, it's boomer tech, oh, blah, 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 absolutely not. You are wrong, and you don't know what you're talking about, and you just shouldn't talk about it. You don't know what it means to zoom on something. Now, there are some actual like cases where maybe this, so for instance, it might be the case that you're on a screen and you can zoom in and the screen's resolution is lower than the resolution of the photograph. So if you ever downloaded Ultra HD porn or something, in that case, you can actually zoom in and you won't be inventing new pixels. That could be one case. You also have things like optical zooms on camera. Now that's not done after an image is processed. An optical zoom will actually like zoom in on a lens, so you get like more data for real. But if you're applying an algorithm afterwards to zoom in on a picture, of course there is a chance that you are adding data, or maybe necessarily you're adding data to that, and that data that you add could determine how that image is viewed. So just that is absolutely an okay point. And if I was the defense, I would be screaming, you're trying to zoom in to prove 1 or 2 pixels is my defendant's gun? Bullshit. You either need better fucking footage or you need to prove to me that this is not an upscale, but it's literally just expanding the fucking pixels.
Judge is completely inept. At one point referring to pixels as pickles.
Uncharged
And again, like the mixing of like the joke and the not joke, like.
pickles.
Okay, so that's that. The judge also has a reputation for attorneys wanting to avoid him. And in addition...
Bring on just one person. I wish that these internet commentators just bring on like 1 or 2 people that have actually worked in these environments before you make a generalization like this, right? This judge is actually avoided by some attorneys. Yeah, no fucking shit, Sherlock. Plenty of fucking judges have plenty of bad reputations with plenty of bad attorneys. That's like every single fucking, anybody that does like trial law probably has judges that they favor, right? Like, oh yeah, like we can get a better ruling from this guy. Oh, I know her. She's really soft on kids. Oh, I know this guy. Like he's really chill here. This guy will fuck you for DUIs. Like anybody that does trial law, from everything I've heard, if you disagree and you're a lawyer, feel free to email me. But anybody that does trial law, you always have judges that like are a little bit better on some things and a little not. Like they're people, they're humans. Like they're not all perfect, right? You know, they have their biases or not. Saying things like there are some people that really don't like this judge. Yeah, no fucking shit, Sherlock. It depends on how he rules. But that doesn't imply there's bias or that there's anything wrong, right? This guy is just a court reporter that went over a bunch of. Few thoughts on Judge Schroeder. He's received a lot of attention during the Rittenhouse trial. I spent a lot of time in his courtroom over the last few years, and I would say his handling of the Rittenhouse case is typical to his handling of all criminal trials. In general, Judge Schroeder tends to be very focused on the defendant's rights during the trial. I thought his outburst at Binger was in line with what he would normally do if he felt a prosecutor crossed the line or ignored past rulings. I certainly may be wrong, but given what I generally see in Judge Schroeder's courtroom, I think the idea that his rulings have shown a political bias towards Rittenhouse is off base. Here's a story about Schroeder that I think is illustrative or illustrative? It's illustrative, right?
Illustrative.
No, it is illustrative. That is illustrative of his thinking. There was an 18-year-old kid who was charged with sexual assaults of 2 different girls whose case was in front of Schroeder. In pretrial hearings, Schroeder was pretty tough on the prosecution. I was sitting in the gallery behind the 18-year-old's mother, and every time the judge held the prosecution's feet to the fire, she was nodding her head and whispering, yes, or that's right. And I thought to myself, you're not going to be nodding your head at sentencing. And she was not. Once a defendant is convicted, Schroeder's focus shifts from protecting the defendant's rights to punishment, and he's known as a very tough sentencing judge. In that kid's case, there ended up being a plea agreement with a chance for a probation sentence. Schroeder gave the kid 2.5 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and a withheld sentence on one charge that would mean the kid would do 10 years if he screwed up on probation. Another story, wait, how strict is probation? If I get like a speeding ticket and I'm on probation, am I going to jail? Are you fucked? Or does it depend on the crime? Or... It depends on the parole officer. It's conditional. That's pretty strict. 100% depends on the crime. Have you responded to Deepak's video where he attacks the judge? Do I have any Twitch stuff in here? How do I? Damn, they really hate me. Not a single one, huh? Can I respond to David Pakman took a ban on Twitch because he covered the trial and showed a bloody thing. Am I actually I should be able to respond to his political content, though. Like, it seems, I feel like the precedent here is we can all watch Trump's speeches, even though Donald Trump is banned. It seems really insane that I can't respond to anything that Pakman is saying because he's banned on Twitch. Like, that seems so ridiculous to me. Schroeder gave the kid 2.5 years in prison. Another story, when I was walking a couple blocks from my car from court the other day, I stopped to chat with a guy who looked to be in his 20s who was walking into his house. He told me Schroeder had sentenced his dad when his dad was 15. That guy, who was black, Dr. Black or just black, capital B, black, told me he was convinced Rittenhouse would get off and that he shouldn't. And that's a perception I hear from lots of folks in town. There are a lot of people in town with a history with Schroeder, and they feel like he's biased against black people. I'm not sure if that's true, but that is a perception of many people, and that will matter for how many people in Kenosha's black community feel about whatever happens with the verdict. My perception of Schroeder is that he cares a great deal about the law and about constitutional rights. I think if I was a defense attorney, I would want him for a case that is going to trial, but the vast majority of cases do not go to trial. They go to pleas. And on sentencing, he can be very tough, maybe more verbally tough than anything. There's a lot of defendants at sentencing who get the same heat Binger got at trial. Anyways, for what it's worth, here's a story I read about Schroeder before the trial began. Also, a note on Schroeder's phone going off in court. That's something that's happened as long as I've been spending time in his courtroom, and it's always been that song.
In addition to that, the flipping out on the prosecutor, whether or not you believe the content of the flipping out was justified, many legal analysts have said when the judge flips out on the attorneys for one side, that is known to influence jurors. And
What? Okay, but what are you supposed to do when one attorney on one side is fucking up? Wait, hold on. Also, did the judge flip out ever in front of a jury? Ever? Did that ever happen in the case ever? I don't know if that happened a single time ever. Every single time that happens, the jury and I believe the witness will be excused and sent to the library.
On the attorneys for one side, that flipping out was justified. Many legal analysts have said when the judge flips out on the attorneys for one side, that is known to influence jurors. And thus, when the jurors see the judge flipping out only on one side,
but they don't see it,
you could make the case that that is influencing the jury.
Oh,
now,
my God.
You could say, well, maybe the judge should be flipping out on one side. Fine. You send the jury out in order to do it. And
he did that every time. Okay, here's what this is truly the lefty brain rot, because this is what I don't understand, okay? There are a lot of things that I could accuse a lot of people of. They didn't watch it. They don't know what's going on. That's fine, blah, blah, blah. But David has been watching every single minute of the trial. Hasn't he watched and streamed every single minute of the trial? How could he not see this? He's watched it more than I have. There's quite a bit of testimony. I'm pretty sure I haven't watched it. How is he not? He's watched like 100+ hours. Not every minute. He walks away frequently. He's been streaming it, but he goes AFK and does other work while it's playing. Okay, I don't understand. I truly don't understand. Like,
so that's that. Now, a couple other things that the judge has done that are sort of questionable. During cross-examination of a reporter from Real America's Voice, who is pro Kyle Rittenhouse, posted pro Kyle Rittenhouse things to social media, the prosecutor on cross-examination started getting into what exactly is Real America's Voice. And Real America's Voice is just a wacky right-wing channel. It's sort of like if Alex Jones InfoWars reporters are there, it would be very relevant for the jury to understand what is InfoWars. And when
would that be relevant? Wasn't this a guy that had just submitted video evidence to the defense? Is it really relevant? Are we trying to impeach him based on his political leanings? Is that actually fair? I don't know if trying to impeach that guy's video testimony based on the political leanings of a company that he worked for, that seems, I don't know. I think the judge made an okay call there. That wasn't a relevant line of questioning. And the prosecutor, that's true too. He got hired after that even happened. But also, if Deepak was in chat, would you do a YouTube stream only? If he wants to chat, I would chat on YouTube if he wanted to. But I don't know if he'll want to. I don't know. The prosecution dropped that line of questioning the second the judge even brought it up too. So
the prosecutor got to the question about what is the political leaning of Real America's Voice, The judge bails out the defense and says, you're not going to ask that.
Bails out.
Channel?
Yes.
Do you have your own independent website that you operate?
I do have an independent website, yes.
What's that called?
drewhlive.com.
One issue is he submitted a spliced video from multiple angles in one video. Okay, Esports Batman, Appleiz, or Pisco can chime in here if they want, okay? Or I don't know if we have any other lawyers in chat that haven't flared, okay? If you have a problem with evidence that's submitted like that you think it's spliced together unfairly or something, my guess is that the appropriate time to challenge that evidence is in pretrial. You wouldn't try to throw that evidence out through witness testimony or whatever. You would probably challenge it, I would imagine. You would challenge it in pretrial, and then you would say, we don't want this submitted as evidence. That would be my guess. But he provided all of the original videos as well? Oh, well.
What is that?
That's my own independent website.
But is it like a
He provided all unedited videos to both sides. Gotcha.
news source? Is it
It's
a
an
blog?
independent website
Of what type?
for myself.
You characterized yourself as a professional commentator. What does that mean?
That means that I comment on the news professionally on a daily basis.
Professionally meaning you're paid?
Yep.
Who pays you?
I am employed by Real America's Voice.
Right.
Real America's Voice?
Yes.
What is that?
That is a news commentary, breaking news website. They have their own apps and, website.
Other than getting paid by Real America's Voice, do you get paid by any other source to do your professional commentating?
No.
Is your Drew H Live website part of Real America's Voice?
No.
The things that you post on your website, Drew H Live, do you also share those with Real America's Voice?
Depending on what's going on where I'm at. But this is unrelated to what happened in Kenosha because I was not employed by Real America's Voice at the time.
That's something that's happened since then.
Yes.
And
How did you not know that? It sounds like that's the first time he's hearing it. To reiterate, you're never asking questions. You don't ask questions when you're doing trial shit to find answers to these questions. You already know all the answers. You're just asking the questions to get it so that the jury can hear the questions. I don't know if he truly did not know that. It sounded like he wasn't ready for that answer, but I might be reading too far into it. But if so, yikes, bro. Not a good yikes for you, man.
does Real America's Voice have any sort of political bias or agenda or anything like that?
What is the development?
It goes to the bias of the witness, Your Honor.
The bias in what respect? I assume.
So anyway, to cut to the end, the
And he doesn't even he plays that whole line of commentary, and he doesn't even let the judge explain why. Well, like, you don't need to explain it. The judge was literally about to say it. Why not just let him say it? Sorry.
doesn't allow that to be asked about. And again, it's like if the witness were Alex Jones and you're not allowed to inquire about what InfoWars is. It's absolutely wild.
But it's not. I don't think we were relying. I don't remember. I have to go back and listen. I don't think we were really relying on his testimony for anything important, though. No, right? Didn't they? What was important from that guy was all of the video stuff that he submitted. I don't think the testimony itself was that important from him.
And then lastly, a very strange comment, which some are saying is a political comment. One day they were having Asian food. Food, as the judge says.
Not this.
And the judge made what some are calling a political comment by saying, hopefully the food's not stuck on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor, alluding to this supply chain controversy. And of course, they're in Wisconsin, folks, so it's a completely unnecessary comment, but it's a joke that goes, some argue, to political bias.
Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor.
Now, even if he doesn't mean thanks to Biden, it's on one of those boats, it's off color and it's not appropriate. And the judge is very, very wacky. So my feeling is, while on the major charges, not guilty follows the facts, the entire thing seems like a foregone conclusion, and the judge seems to be very much so helping that along.
How did we get from all of these little disconnected random things to it seems to be a foregone conclusion what'll happen. Really? And we're going to say the bias wasn't really that important, but the conclusion is foregone.